Welcome to the SecurityDNA podcast, powered by SecurityInfoWatch. This is your front line for bold insights and real intelligence that cuts through the noise and gets straight to what matters most. I'm Samantha Schober, Assistant Editor of SecurityInfoWatch and the producer of today's episode. At SecurityInfoWatch, we deliver sharp, real-time insights into the biggest challenges facing security and risk professionals today. From emerging threats to game-changing technologies, we go beyond the headlines to provide expert analysis, real-world strategies, and critical risk intelligence, giving you the knowledge you need to stay ahead in this rapidly evolving landscape. My colleague, Steve Lasky, a security industry veteran with over 35 years of experience, will join us today. As the editorial director for the security group at Endeavor Business Media, Steve brings deep expertise and a unique perspective to every conversation. Today we have a compelling guest as Steve sits down with Rich Davis, a senior security advisor with International SOS, who is an expert in aviation security, security intelligence and operation centers, business continuity, crisis management and simulation drills, event security, and threat intelligence. So let's get started. Rich joined International SOS in 2019 as a senior security advisor. Before joining International SOS, he worked for United Airlines for 40 years, 30 years in the security department, and the last 22 years as the chief security officer. During his 30 years in aviation security, he worked very closely with multiple government agencies, including the FBI, U.S. State Department, DHS, TSA, U.S. Customs, and the intelligence community, as civil aviation was and remains a target of terrorists. While serving as the CSO for United, he was appointed to the U.S. State Department's Overseas Security Advisory Council, or OSAC, where he served from 2007 to 2018, the FBI's Domestic Security Alliance Council, or DSAC, where he served from 2007 to 2018, and the Executive Committee from 2010 to 2018. He joined the International Security Management Association, or ISMA, from 2007 to 2021, and was elected to their board of directors from 2016 to 2021. He is also the president and board of directors of the International Security Foundation, or the ISF, and a member of the board of directors and the Domestic Security Partnership, or the DSP. The ISF and DSP are 501c3 entities that support OSAC and DSAC. He was also appointed to the Center for Strategic International Studies as a Global Security Advisor Group member. In the aviation sector, he was a 6-time chairman of the Airlines for America and a 3-time chairman of the International Aviation Transportation Association. He was also the vice chair of both associations 5 times. Most recently, in 2018, he was appointed to the Blue Ribbon Task Force, Unmanned Aerial Systems Mitigation, to address the growing issues of airport drone traffic. He is an accomplished public speaker at airline and airport safety and security conferences worldwide. And with that, let's turn it over to Steve.
So thanks, Samantha. Appreciate you setting the stage for this. Rich, want to welcome you to SecurityDNA. We're thrilled to have somebody with your aviation security knowledge and someone that's as well-versed in the upcoming Real ID rollout. Just for those that are listening, this was recorded a week before the actual rollout, so we'll be talking pretty much in hypotheticals, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. So, Rich, we both agree that the aviation industry faces unprecedented hurdles from geopolitical tension to sophisticated cyber threats as security professionals understanding these complexities are taking steps to safeguard our skies. A pivotal development in this arena is the impending enforcement of the Real ID Act, and that was scheduled to start May 7th, 2025, where travelers of 18 or older are going to be required to present a Real ID compliant identification aboard domestic flights and access certain federal facilities. This initiative is aimed to enhance the reliability and accuracy of state-issued identification documents, thereby strengthening airport security protocols. So, Rich, as a seasoned aviation security exec and an expert with more than 35 years in the industry, you've been a vocal advocate for enhancing airline and airport security protocols. And as the former managing director of global security and compliance at United Airlines, and a leader in myriad airline and airport security organizations, you've highlighted the importance of integrating advanced technologies and fostering collaboration between airlines, airports, and government agencies to bolster security measures, and you've stressed that a unified approach is essential to mitigate risk and ensure passenger safety and effectiveness. You've also expressed concerns about the challenges of implementing the Real ID Act. You said in a recent television interview that you advise travelers without immediate travel plans or those already possessing a passport to consider waiting for an appointment to obtain their Real ID certification. You noted that the availability is expected to improve after the deadline passes. I'm hoping that's happening as you are. So your insights underscore the critical need for continuous improvement in the aviation security landscape, emphasizing that adaptability and collaboration are keys to addressing the dynamic scope of, what entails the aviation security today. So I know it sounds like a basic question, but what are the reasons, behind Real ID, and how long has this concept been in the works? And basically, just what is Real ID?
Well, thanks for inviting me for this, Steve. I really appreciate it. I always like talking about aviation security. And Real ID, the concept began after 9/11 of how does the U.S. government actually tighten security in the years after 9/11. And the Real ID was born in 2005. And here we are 20 years later and finally approaching a solid implementation date. I don't foresee any other delays at all. So May 7th is the date for this. And Real ID is basically state issued driver's licenses or identification cards that meet security standards set by the federal government. That's what set it all. It's a little bit of a standardization process for IDs of travelers and for people that are going to be entering federal buildings. But let's stick with the airport and airline situation
Sure.
here. You mentioned technology. In the grand scheme of everything, security is so important in aviation, and there are layer after layer after layers of security trying to protect the safety and security of every flight that departs airports in the U.S. And quite frankly, countermeasures counterterrorism, and you have to look at the very large picture of the different pathways that the bad guys have to try to defeat the good guys. Simple as that. And that can, for example, check baggage, carry-on baggage, catering, cargo, mail, the actual people themselves. Everybody is beginning to experience facial recognition. And ID cards are just one more element of that big picture and layered security.
No, I'm figuring, like I said, this is being aired a week after the deadline passed, but you have to imagine that there are going to be folks still scrambling to get their Real ID certification. So, what are people, for those who haven't done it yet? What should people do if their DMV has no Real ID appointments uh, in and around the deadline and soon afterwards, because people are not going to want to wait that long? And what kind of supporting documentation are potential flyers going to need to receive their Real ID, and what can they do if they don't have the proper identification documentation?
Good question, and it's going to really be seen uh, in the coming weeks of what's happening at airports with this. I strongly urge everybody that has questions about Real ID, the best source of information is the TSA website, tsa.gov. It's going to spell out all of the alternatives to gain access through the security checkpoints past the TSA if you don't have the Real ID driver's license. The most common one that a lot of people have is the passport, a U.S. passport. Military ID will cover a lot of people, but everybody look at that TSA.gov website for your alternatives. You mentioned a lot of the people that don't have them. And my recommendation is a little bit twofold. One, if you don't have a real ID yet and you're not traveling in the near future, try to set up an appointment a month or two out, which will allow those that are traveling in the near future an opportunity in their state to maybe get a reservation at a DMV in your state and get a real ID as soon as you can. If you're unable to get your real ID and it's past May 7th, which it actually will be when people watch this, it's important to get to the airport sooner than later because you will experience a lengthier process. And I'm sure you're going to ask me another question about some of my predictions of what's happening, and I'll wait for that question before I elaborate.
Once you get into the process of getting your ID and you're working with DMV, how long is the turnaround to get that new ID card?
Well, it's definitely going to be a state by state answer. And that's been one of the delays of implementation of Real ID. Different states have different speeds, faster and slower, on how they can process everything that needs to be processed to issue a Real ID. So if people that are watching this are inquisitive about that, check with your local state DMV facility on that length of time. It's probably located in a frequently asked question section of their website.
Fair enough on that. So, why could implementing Real ID cause changes to security protocols at the airports and the amount of time it's going to take to get through security? And also, the pressure it's going to put on TSA staff and the overall security environment at airports.
Well, changes in airport security always cause some irritation, let's say.
Sure.
And I'll go back to a handful of years, 2006 and 7, when the liquid plot was discovered in the UK. And overnight, the government banned the carriage of liquids. And I'm sure those of us that go back those 15, 20 years, you can remember the turmoil
Right.
at the airports. Real ID will not cause that kind of turmoil. But here's some of the predictions that I foresee happening starting May 7th. And what it will cause is for the airlines, the TSA, and the airports to have what I like to call a playbook. They all know and have been meeting for months and years about what's going to happen with that X amount of percent of people that, for whatever reason, just do not have a real ID and arrive at the airport. Scenario one, a lot of people don't have checked baggage, so they go directly to their TSA security checkpoint line, be it TSA pre-check or those without pre-check. You're going to stand in line, you're going to arrive, present your identification to the TSA, and guess what? They're going to say, you don't have a real ID. Passengers are going to say, pardon me? What? Excuse me? I don't understand. Well, the end result is there's going to be some length of conversation there. And what that does is it slows that line down behind you for every line where people arrive without an ID. So that's where you're starting to get number one backup. Number two backup will be those people with checked baggage. They're going to get to airline podiums to check their bag. They're going to present their ID, which is a requirement for passengers checking baggage. And guess what again? There's going to be a conversation because the airlines are going to say, you don't have a real ID. And that's going to further delay that kind of situation. The number three is this. People that fly before May 7th without a real ID, I'm sure the TSA's playbook says, you got to get a real ID. You need to have this by May 7th. Well, how do I get it? Conversation, once again, slows things down. But in reality, those people that are returning on their trip after May 7th are going to experience one of these scenarios, and it's just going to slow things down. I believe the airlines and airports will be prepared for that. I believe the TSA has full expectation that that's going to happen. But what you're going to see, and it's been pretty well advertised on network TVs,
Right.
on the nightly news and the morning news, expect delays because you're probably going to go through some lengthier security measures. For example, physical searches of your carry-on luggage and perhaps a pat down or everybody going through one of their favorite machines like this. It takes a few seconds. That's what more and more people are going to have to do. It will differ from airport to airport because no footprint is alike of airports, real estate sizes at the checkpoints. So it's going to be interesting, a little bit fun to watch, I think. And
Yeah. If you're
we're all
not in
going to see
line,
it.
yeah. If you're not
We're
in
all
line,
going to
it'll be
see it
fun.
because the media is going to be at every airport watching.
Oh yeah. That begs the question too. Is bottom line is if you're caught unawares that you don't have the proper identification, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be bumped off your flight, not allowed to travel. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. I don't think the TSA is going to hamstring people and cause that disruption to the individuals, number one, two, the airlines themselves, three, the airports. It's just not something that I think is in their playbook.
Okay, great.
And I think it's important for everybody to understand when the TSA allows people to go through and probably experience a lengthier security process due to the fact that they do not have a real ID, that does not lessen security whatsoever. In fact, it might even increase it with the lengthier process. But just because you don't have a real ID on May 7th doesn't decrease security that existed on May 6th. It just doesn't. So the skies remain safe with or without a real ID, but get them, people, because uh, the lengthier it is, the more inconvenient it is.
Yeah, I mean that's a scary proposition. The Tuesday before ISC, when I left Atlanta Hartsfield to fly to Las Vegas, the queue in the tundra there was an hour and a half, and that was supposed to be a quick moving line. The pre-checks were an hour, so I shudder to think what'll happen if we're sitting there doing deep dives on people that don't have proper identification. So, Rich, when we're looking at the total landscape of global threats and how it's reshaped our thinking about air travel, and the Real X implementation is going to be a pivotal moment in aviation security. But it isn't just about the new ID card, it's about reinforcing the integrity of airport access and identity verification in an era marked by heightened security concerns, with Real ID representing a national standard designed to close loopholes exploited by bad actors and streamline vetting processes at security checkpoints. So, elaborate a little bit on this dynamic and what you see uh, and how you see this as a crucial safety and security step that, again, like you talked about earlier, is one of the layers that we're putting in place here in aviation security now.
Well, Steve, TSA and the airports and the airlines are always exploring ways to improve all processes. Continuous improvement is probably a great term. TSA Office of Technology is always looking at uh, more efficient and improved walk-through metal detectors, X-ray machines, explosive detection systems, portable trace detection units. How's a better way to screen mail? How is an improved way to screen luggage? What are better and less intrusive ways to look at the passenger and anomalies that might be uh, hidden under their hats or under their clothing, inside their shoes? Remember the shoe bomber?
Sure.
Uh, the underwear bomber, the liquid plots. You're always having to keep up with the bad guys. You always have to do countermeasures, counterterrorism, and it's a continuous effort to do this. And I think facial recognition is on so many different people's plates, TSA, US Customs, all around the world. What are the best ways to continuously identify those that aren't deemed to be threats and those that could be deemed to be threats? For example, people on the watch list. As a lot of people know, we have a no-fly list. We have a selectee list that everybody continuously monitors, adjusts to identify people that might be a threat to the safety and security of any airplane they're flying on. And I applaud those efforts because the technology is a huge assist to what we're trying to do in this industry.
And that kind of segues into this question is, as we look at where airport security is in 2025, we can admit that we've made significant strides through technological advancements, addressing privacy concerns, and strengthening cybersecurity, as well as enhancing the workforce capabilities that are vital to manning these devices and integrating them into a more secure and efficient aviation environment. So let's kind of hit on what I right now as I see are three of the major technology advancements that we're working with. You just mentioned one, biometrics. Airports are increasingly adopting biometric technology such as facial recognition and iris scanning to streamline passenger identification. While these systems are going to enhance security, uh, they're also social issues to be concerned about. There's privacy issues and biases that can be, read into some biometrics. Uh, what is your experience with biometrics, and where do you see them playing a bigger role in the future?
Well, for biometrics, I think there's always going to be a percentage of people that will never accept it. And I think that the regulators, the governments, the private sector, the airports and airlines, uh, trains, talk about trains one of these days.
Sure.
I believe that biometrics and facial recognition and whatever the government elects to predominantly use, that's the most efficient and the best working technology they can get their hands on, is going to be essential to getting people through these areas quicker. And I think when you have the 90 to 95% of the people that will get used to it and accept it, that's going to be good. Recognizing that there are percentages of people that just don't believe in it, don't accept it, but still want to fly. I believe the governments and the regulators in the private sector will continue to explore acceptable alternatives to the actual facial recognition itself. Maybe it's a fingerprint. Who knows? But as technology and the years go by and artificial intelligence may play a role in that, I think people will be able to get from streets to the gates quicker using the accepted technologies that are being developed now and will soon be developed.
And again, like you said, uh, artificial intelligence deployment is something that TSA is testing as we speak. They're looking at it to assist screening officers, including AI chatbots and virtual reality tools for training purposes. So I think the proliferation and the advancement of biometrics is only going to be enhanced by the exponential expansion of AI in aviation security as well. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's currently a pretty much unexplored capability, and it has to be explored, and it is being explored and will continue to be. But a reminder is the bad guys are exploring its use as well. And at the end of the day, with all of the new threats that exist today, we can never forget about knives and guns.
So another thing that we want to talk about too is advanced imaging technologies here. There are innovations of AI that include shoe scanners that are being developed to improve threat detection and expedite screening. You know, like you said, if you've flown over the last 10 years, you see all the different devices that are in play now. Uh, w- where are we with the importance of uh, advanced imaging technology today, and where do you see it in the near future?
I continue to believe that it will improve as it has since the 70s.
Okay.
Metal detectors, X-ray machines improved decade after decade after decade. Today, you have machines that are pretty much going to tell you there's explosives in here somewhere or elements of explosives. They still need a little bit of human interpretation, and that's the importance of the people that are operating this equipment. Very, very important. It's just continuous and continuous. The amount of explosives that can be used continues to evolve, but it's never been a lot of explosives needed to have its effect on catastrophic sabotage efforts. Luckily, those are very, very few and far between, extremely few and far between. Um, what's also important to remember, and it's actually reality, if you have some really, really well-trained individuals that elect to operate on the bad guys teams, some of them don't need guns and knives and weapons. That's a fact, and that highlights the importance of watch lists and background checks and everything else on the flying public. Anything that can be used to identify somebody that might be or could be or is a threat to aviation safety and security, it's in our toolbox.
Yeah, and I think that's the forgotten element is that situational awareness and real time intelligence that's used, and again the intelligence sharing among agencies in the last decade or two has gotten so much better. That certainly has improved where we are with aviation security.
Well,
You know,
absolutely.
You know, Rich, we're going to have to get you back towards the end of the year so we can sort of assess where we are with this experiment. Like you, I think this is going to be a boon to aviation security, but I'd like to kind of monitor it with you and get you back a little later in the year and see where we are uh, on that. So hopefully you'll take that invitation. Want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule today and just bringing your depth of knowledge of aviation security and perspectives you're bringing about the current implementation about new technologies and the real ID applications. I think that's going to be a something for us to watch, and it was a compelling conversation. So we'll be talking to you a little later on in the year. We will certainly get you back on here. So and I look forward to our continuing conversations. Uh, with that, Sam, I'm going to toss it back to you and close this out.
Well, Steve, thank you and Rich for this discussion about the rapidly evolving world of aviation security, identity, and other pressing issues the security industry faces, as well as how our listeners can prepare for the challenges ahead. So thanks for tuning in. This podcast is your go-to source for staying ahead in the security industry. It offers sharp insights, real-time trends, and straight talk for industry professionals. It's built to keep you informed and empowered wherever you are. Stay connected, stay sharp, and maintain security at the forefront. To access our podcast lineup, go to podbean.com and search for SecurityDNA. You can also find our podcasts on our Security Frontline, Integrator Newswire, and Security Week e-newsletters. Of course, we'd love to receive feedback from you, our listeners, about topics that interest you. If you have a suggestion, email Steve at slasky, that's SLASKY, at SecurityInfoWatch.com. This episode of the SecurityDNA podcast was recorded and produced by Samantha Schober, that's me, Assistant Editor for Security InfoWatch. For Steve Lasky, Rich Davis, and everyone at Security InfoWatch, thank you for listening, and keep an ear open for our next podcast.